One of the highlights of the MindTech International Conference and exhibition that took place earlier this week in Johannesburg was the Technical Skills Forum that reviewed the current skills situation on the continent, looking at strategies to address technical skills shortages and unpacked issues such as workforce planning and development, skills retention, retrenchments and linking training to business results. To tell us more about the conference and issues that came out of the discussions is Yendo Felgate, Skills Development Expert at Emergence Consulting. Yendo, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Well, last year, an Ernst & Young report on the state of the labour market, particularly the international mining industry, it found that a third of South African engineers have left the country over the past 40 years. Would you agree with those figures?
Absolutely. I think if you look at the expansion of mining in Asia alone and the movement of many of the Australian skilled engineers to Asia, we're starting to see a drain of our skills that are reaching significant proportions.
Yes, Russia and India as well, emerging as quite high demanders as well.
Absolutely, and if you look at the flagship skills of the engineers, we're looking at a demand of about 500,000 over the next couple of years, despite the recession, and we are losing probably about 80% of our engineers to other industries like construction.
Yes.
And then the supply is only about 2 to 5% renewal per year, so we're looking at a major deficit.
What strategies are being put in place to keep mining or retain mining as an attractive employer?
We're starting to see a lot of green plants emerge from a skills development point of view. So we see government starting to look at working with industry. We're starting to see an African university being suggested. We see local industries putting together artisans schools for Africa and so forth. But these are very small in terms of the deficit we're facing. If you look at the numbers, for example, less than 5% of students actually go vocational training route in Africa. With 133 million youth unemployed, there's huge potential here. We'd like to see industry and government do far more. It's not something that industry alone could do, or one company can do, or even one government can do. Our view is that if South Africa, for example, who has skills in education, can produce or overproduce numbers for our continent, then we'll be in a situation like the Philippines, where they actively export skills because they produce more than they can actually use.
The shortage of skilled labour, particularly in mining, how much is it costing us as a continent and even as South Africa?
Well, the difficulty, of course, is that without skills you cannot achieve... Exactly. You can't produce in a safe way. And I think if you look at media and what's happened recently in terms of health and safety, that becomes quite a huge issue. There's a risk attached to that. Having said that, I think that the continent is starting to look at super subs. In other words, looking at expatriate skills from the very places that are taking our skills. And, the more open and flexible we can be with that, I think, the more that we can copy and learn from other countries, I think we'll start filling that. But there's no doubt it's a lost opportunity.
Now, Yendo, mining used to be a huge generator of jobs for unskilled labour.
Yes.
However, we've seen the demand patterns for labour change over the years, and that's partly due to the advances in technology, obviously. What are human resource departments doing in reprofiling their workforce and identifying the needs?
Well, I think there's also a further trend. I think the whole sort of environmental debate and the move to more environmentally friendly production techniques will also change skills requirements. What came out of the MindTech conference is that human resource folk tend to be quite conservative in their approach to sourcing of labour in terms of skills development and so on. And I think what came out of the conference was a dramatic need to look at more flexible solutions.
And what could those solutions be?
Well, I think in times of recession, it's important to realize that you don't have to employ everybody permanently. So I think there's something about making sure that you can just in time keep your labour force contracted and productive. And this means getting quite innovative about how you deal with your head office costs. So we're advocating many of the flexible work arrangements we're starting to see overseas in recession, where people start donating time to NGOs and so forth, just to help companies through this very tough period. Going forward, a dramatic skills or change in the way we develop skills is going to be imminent. I think things like technology is going to make distance education far more important.
And obviously, talking about education, partnering with our universities would be key going forward.
Absolutely. I think it's up to the universities to take up the entrepreneurial baton and see if we can't get this African university off the ground. I think as technology costs come down, we're starting to see education not being dependent on location. So I think we can export our skills that way.
But we've also seen, for example, ISCO used to have an artisan school, those type of initiatives. We've seen those close down. Why?
I think in the great sort of hubris of post-democracy, we've underestimated the importance of basic technical skills. And I think we've overestimated the skills that were currently on the ground. We went through a great process of recognition of prior learning, where we tried to credential as many people with the skills that had no access before '94. But, you know, we're only producing about 1,400 artisans per year. In this market, it just doesn't make sense. Okay. So I think, but that's been realized, and I think government is coming to the party, industry is coming to the party, but it is a small green shoots offshoot at this stage rather than a huge initiative. We'd like to see more, obviously.
Yanda Felgate, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
After the break, we find out how the Kenyan and Mauritian markets performed today here on CNBC Africa First in Business Worldwide.